Well, hey there, HVAC pros and enthusiasts. Are you ready to take your skills to the next level? The HVACR Learning Network has just launched an exciting new e-learning course, High Performance Heat Pumps. And guess what? We're giving you free access to the first 2 chapters. Whether you're in the field, training for that next step, or simply want to sharpen your expertise, this course is packed with everything you need to understand and master high-performance heat pump systems, especially inverter-driven cold climate heat pumps. And the best part? You can access it anytime, anywhere, right from your favorite mobile device. It's HVACR learning made flexible and convenient for you. So what are you waiting for? Click the link. Dive into the HVACR Learning Network and start your free trial today. Your journey to HVACR mastery begins here. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us once again on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show. You know, we spend so much time talking about new technologies and innovations, and I was at a conference not too long ago, and one of the viewers, it may be you out there in the audience, came up to me and said, "When are you going to quit talking about heat pumps? That seems to be the only thing that you're talking about these days." And I was like, until we move on to a new technology, and we need to bring a new education to you. Because right now, we all need to be focusing on learning and understanding heat pumps, not just our traditional heat pumps that we've worked on for decades, but making sure that our students, our technicians are prepared for our next generations of equipment, which have actually been out for a long time, but we're really introducing a lot of that into the market today. So we've been focusing on ways to bring the industry together, to make sure that we're putting out students that are going to be capable of working on the technologies that they're going to be introduced. Because many of us technicians, I've said this so many times, many of us educators were technicians that came to education. And so once we've been out of the field for a while, it's sometimes difficult to stay up to date with the new technologies, but it is critical. And we worry about a educational disaster if we don't all step up our game and make sure that our content, our curriculum, and our own training is up to speed. So we've been very busy here at ESCO working with our industry partners, our equipment manufacturers and trade associations to bring the firsthand information directly to you. We're helping make conversations between schools and manufacturers. We're working with contractors and distributors and manufacturers. And we're all here for a common purpose. And for any equipment manufacturers that are out there joining us today, I think you'll want to be a part of this conversation because it's a way for us to unite an entire industry. Patrick, thank you for joining us. And everyone, let us know where you're joining in from. I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana, just outside in Brownsburg. Been busy putting our new mobile studio together. I can't wait to start showing you some of that as we get closer. We're going to go around, we're going to introduce ourselves and where we're joining from today, and then we're going to dive into ways that our manufacturers are partnering with other organizations in the industry like ESCO and our schools to elevate the level of education for the entire industry. Paul, you want to start us off?
Sure. My name is Paul Schaubs. I'm the Senior Training Manager with Mitsubishi Electric. My home is in Boston, but today I'm visiting our Dallas office, and that's where I'm sitting right now.
Very cool. Howard?
I'm Howard Weiss with ESCO Institute, and I'm based in the Denver metro area.
Tom?
My name is Tom Grunster. I'm the Director of Program Development for ESCO, and I'm fresh out of the field in January from having worked for a major manufacturer. And I live and work remotely from near the Albany, New York area.
Very cool. Jeff?
Yeah, my name's Jeff Bledsoe with Daikin Comfort Technologies. I've been with Daikin about 19 years. I'm coming to you today from a hotel room in Chicago where I'm supporting some of our other trades that are going on. So,
very cool. Justin?
My name is Justin Kidwell. I am also from Daikin Comfort Technologies. I am a contractor development specialist. I work with Jeff. And I am coming from you from lovely San Diego.
Very cool. We actually have some other equipment manufacturers that couldn't join us today. We actually may have one that pops in along the way. If he does, I'll bring him into the conversation. So we kind of threw this together at last minute because we had the opportunity to do that this week, and we want to start this conversation now because it's going to be one of the focuses at the National HVACR Education Conference this year. Is how can we make sure that our industry is getting the education that it needs, all the way from our schools down to our contractors? Because there's going to be a lot of changes that need to be understood. You know, we've had a lot happen in the last few years, and it's not going to slow down. You know, the equipment is evolving faster than the education in our industry. And I think many industries are suffering from that. And we can kind of talk about that along the way. And I hope that you get that feeling that things are moving very fast, and our programs are really going to need to elevate the level of education, and we are going to make sure that you have those resources to do that. So let's kind of start out with the why, like why things are moving. One of the things that we see is that there's, oh, hold on, I'm on the wrong slide. Let me move backwards one. One of the things that we see is there's a lot of pushes. Now, whether you look at it from a electrification, a degasification, or a simply management of our infrastructure, they all are really working at the same thing. We're trying to manage the way that we utilize energy. So let's talk about some goals that are happening at the federal and state level that are kind of driving this. Howard, I know this is right at the heart of our conversations. Why don't you start us out on this one?
I think that all of us on this meeting are on different work groups at a federal or state level.
Yes.
They all have different reasons, but they all come down to, you hit them: electrification, decarbonization. Why are all of us involved? All of us, our goal is, it's not about picking a technology any more than we can pick a brand. We have to be agnostic. My goal is, when I'm on these committees, it's not about installing X number of heat pumps. It's installing them correctly. I keep looking at 2001 when there were rolling brownouts in Los Angeles, and they tracked it back to the HVAC industry. So our goal isn't installing, for example, California has a goal of 6 million heat pumps by January 1st of 2030. It should be 6 million properly installed heat pumps. And I think that's all of us, that's our general concern.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. You know, Paul, from the Mitsubishi side, you know, a majority of your products are inverter-driven technologies. How have you seen installations affect the products in the last few years? Have you seen the level of installations, proper installations, increasing, leveling out, or decreasing?
By far, the biggest problems we see out there come down to installation.
Okay.
And that's been the case for a while, and I don't have a number to give you in my own personal
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
It's always been in the high 80s, 90%. But the concerning thing to me is what we've seen lately is just a lack of basic skills. We see basic piping principles not being followed. We'll go on a job site and we've seen copper lines that are roughed in going through a roof, refrigerant lines sticking up through a roof to be installed later with just a piece of electrical tape on them. We have had some systems fail, and when we get down to it and look inside, we found sand and gravel and copper shavings inside the compressors and in the windings. And it's basic piping principles is the thing I've seen. And getting back to Howard's point, the electrification, the properly installed system is very important, because the reason we're doing this is basically for grid resilience. And if it's not installed properly, you're going to lose out. You're not going to get the efficiency. You're not going to get the high performance. You're not going to get the grid resilience. You're not going to get the energy savings.
Absolutely. You know, Justin, you are out of this team. You're the newest one in this realm that has been out visiting schools and starting to understand the education that is across the country and the things that we need to add. What do you see as some of the most common challenges or practices that we could focus on better as an industry?
I think one of the biggest things to really focus on is to expand the knowledge of those instructors. A lot of instructors have come from the field, which is great. They have that knowledge that they can pass on to their students.
Right.
However, they do need to continue their education as instructors and bring that newer technology to the forefront and let their students know, hey, yes, you're going to be working on newer technology. You still need to use the old technology that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all the same fundamentals, kind of like what was just said earlier, is basic principles.
Yep, absolutely. You know, Jeff, as you're out and about in the country, I know you've been partnering with a lot of schools that are really interested in elevating their knowledge in products. And one thing that's very important, there's the general knowledge, like we talk about just exactly what you're talking about, Justin. You know, for us technicians that came out of the field, we've gotten really good tribal knowledge. We've gotten comfortable with the technology. And so a lot of times we're just having to add the different things that vary between manufacturers. But as we move into more of these inverter technologies, I think it's critical that our schools are partnering with equipment manufacturers to get that manufacturer specific training, because we can do general education on inverter technology all day long. But when we get into the equipment itself, I feel like there's that need for schools to be working with their equipment manufacturers to learn the equipment specific technologies. Would you say that is a common item, Jeff?
You nailed it, Clifton. That's one of the most critical aspects of any inverter based, and I'm sure Paul knows this. The charge is so critical on inverters. It's not the typical system that is very forgiving for a bad install, for not using nitrogen and things like that when you're purging the lines. And Howard and I had a conversation the other day too, and when back to Justin's comment about the instructors, John Maxwell has a book called The Law of the Lid. You can only take your team as far as you know how to go. And that's where the instructors, they take that knowledge that they had from the field, and that's where they stopped. They can't take their students past that because, they don't know. That's where we have to do a better job in making sure that they understand this stuff is so critical, and they're doing their students a disservice by them not continuing their education. It would be really neat to see some continuing education credits that they required as instructors, so we can help do that in the marketplace. So they need to go back to school every year, and the fact is that some of them, it varies across the country on the issues that I run into from school to school on what the limitations are being placed on the instructors and what they can do in their class. But you're right. Basic skills are basic skills. We have got to make sure that is the foundation, because if you don't have that solid foundation, your education is going to crumble a little bit.
Yeah, the Bierman, I'm glad you actually made that comment. I can tell that you're a contractor joining us, and we want contractors to join because it's going to be imperative when we start talking about systems that are critically charged, right? When we start talking about systems that are only operating as well as they're installed, which you will find in inverters. They have to be installed properly for them to operate properly. And I've seen this in the industry quite often, and I've heard, I don't have time to do this. And in return, we have to say, you don't have time not to do this, because every time we do it wrong, we're going to be coming back and working on those systems, or someone is coming back to work on those systems. And unfortunately, with high performing heat pumps, if a consumer is expecting a high performance piece of equipment that has been tested, has been designed, can produce a certain outcome, but it is improperly installed, it's never going to meet the customer satisfaction, which in turn gives the equipment a bad name, gives manufacturers a bad name, and it actually deteriorates our potential for installing heat pumps on a large scale, which is really what we're talking about. And for those that are unaware of where this is going, we're going to be having a push for a significant amount of heat pumps being installed, particularly in states that are having a massive campaign for doing heat pump installations. So we really fall into two different types of education. And so that's why I wanted to have a variety of representatives with us today, a viewpoint from different sides, because we have two areas we're going to have to focus on education going into this next period of this evolution of education, as we could call it. And let's, Tom, you want to run with either one of these points, because our manufacturers are working in both of these sectors. And so from your experience, let's grab one of these and we'll let a manufacturer grab another one.
Absolutely. So upskilling existing workforce. all the things that you hit upon already are fundamental to what we're talking about here. So just like several of you, Clifton, you and I have talked. I'm a very experienced heating and air conditioning technician, residential and commercial. Moved into the training side of this. Just love doing so. But what we have to do is figure out what we're weak at and be willing to fix what we need to fix in ourselves and in our own crews. I found, as I'm trying to study and tie into what's going on these days, my greatest weakness is in psychrometrics, air properties, airflow. I mean, yeah, I know how to do things. I know how to make sure I adjust the airflow before I charge a piece of equipment, but I'm learning more and more that I need to know the depth and the fundamentals of what I'm working on. And so the same thing goes true for an existing crew. Somebody out there that's installing heat pumps, if your crew doesn't know the fundamentals, all they're doing is putting in and basically roughing in something that may or may not apply appropriately. And what I mean by that is you can put in any heat pump anywhere. That doesn't mean it's actually going to do the job that you're hoping it's going to do. You need to have a heat pump installed and know that it's going to do the job it's going to do. And that's that fundamental knowledge that's required. And you don't have to go back to the basics. You have to go back to what you don't know.
Yeah, so true. Now, Paul, I know in your training programs, as well as in Daikin's and many other manufacturers, you will see both. You will see contractors coming to your training programs. You will see educators coming to your training programs. And I know that you also work with schools. Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing and what we're needing in our educational programs to prepare our students for our technologies and fundamentals.
Yeah. And somebody mentioned it earlier. We need to make sure that the instructors keep learning. Learning doesn't stop just because you go to school and you graduate from a program. I often compare our industry to the medical field.
Right.
You don't become a doctor. You don't go to medical school and become a doctor. You still got to go to classes and keep it. Imagine if you had a doctor who graduated from medical school 20 years ago and still practicing and hasn't taken any learning or learned anything since then. You wouldn't want that doctor treating you. So the same is true. And for these instructors, it's your responsibility to make sure you get up to these new technologies. And I was a former instructor in a for-profit trade school as well before I came to Mitsubishi. So I know what it's like. A lot of instructors are part-time, adjunct instructors. They don't have the time, but we need to get the, and Howard and I were talking about this in the past, is the school administrators need to buy in and need to realize how important it is to keep these instructors up to date on current technology. And from there, we depend on the schools. As former contractor too, I depend on the schools to teach them the fundamentals, the basics. And I said this before, I think in a previous meeting with some of the folks on here. You don't learn this trade in the classroom. The classroom gives you the tools necessary to learn the trade. You go out into the field in a van and you learn it. And from there, you're going to work for somebody that specializes in this or that. Again, getting back to the medical analogy, you're going to have somebody in pediatrics and somebody in orthopedics and somebody in oncology. Right? Once you determine that, you graduate from school, then you're going to be working for somebody who does a certain manufacturer that uses this equipment or that equipment, installs this. That's when you come to one of us and say, hey, teach me about your product. And if there's something you haven't done before, you're new to heat pumps, we all have training programs and that we all excel at that.
I agree. I just wrote an article yesterday, and that was the comparison that I used. Like when we look at technology, we've had a single stage platform for 50, 60, 70 years. We've gotten comfortable on it. It's a general practice. It's kind of like going to the family doctor, right? These all look the same, operate the same, and I can diagnose them the same. But as we move into specialty products, it's a whole different scenario. It's like if I've got a sore elbow and I go to the doctor and the degree on the wall is for a podiatrist, I may not be in the right place. I may not be connected to the right specialist for the issue that I have. And we are going to be very much like that moving into a new generation of technology. And the Beerman, we are so glad you are here with us, because we are going to help you get the tools. We're going to help you get the education that you need to elevate that program. And that's what we do this show for every week. We are all educators, every one of us. We have all experienced that pain of, man, am I doing the right thing? Have I got the right resources? Have I got the right equipment? I want to make a difference. Like, we are all in education because we enjoy working with others, serving others, building people up. And I promise you, we are not here to put down a school. We're not here to put down a contractor. We're here to tell you that we are all going through change, very, very difficult change, but we are here to support you. And we're going to be talking about the resources to get you through that, because I'm telling you, the resources that we're sharing and discussing is what has helped make my career possible. And I'm so grateful for every single person on this panel today. So let's talk about short-term training programs, because if you all have not heard of the push for heat pump installers and heat pump service technicians, you will be starting to see more media about that, more coverage about that. There is a massive push to educate the industry on heat pumps properly, but there's also initiatives to do very short-term training programs. And I have my own personal feelings on this, but I wouldn't mind having some input. I know as equipment manufacturers, you may or may not be able to touch on this topic. Let's start with Howard on this one and see if anyone loosens up a little bit and can offer some tidbits.
I think part of the problem is here, heat pumps have outsold gas furnaces the last few years. It's the fastest growing part of our industry.
Mm-hmm.
What's not growing quick enough is the number of people trained to work on them. So we have a disconnect, there's a skills gap. So if you want to be successful moving forward, we don't have enough people. Plus, Clifton, you and I have talked about 40% of the skilled trade workforce is going to retire by 2035.
Wow, that's a big number.
So people are sitting there thinking, how are we going to find enough people to do this? Let's create a short-term program. Problem is, how am I going to teach them safety, heat transfer, refrigerants, heating, all the things that we need, those fundamentals. You can't just tell someone, oh, good luck, go install this and understand the electrical part, the refrigerant part. So I think it's disingenuous. That being short, could we take someone who already is, going back to your previous slide, can I upskill someone in a couple of weeks? Short term? Sure. But if I'm taking someone right off the street, absolutely not. There's no shortcut. I'll just say one thing, and this is a good lead-in for the manufacturers. What percentage of equipment, when returned to manufacturers and bench tested, is found to have no fault found on residential components? And the last number I saw was 82.2%. Okay? So, do we have a problem? I could say this. How many people would go to a LASIK eye clinic that said, we get it right 15% of the time?
Sad, but the truth. Paul, this is a great topic. This is something that I think is worth us discussing for just a minute. So, Paul, I appreciate you so much being on here week after week, joining these conversations. Oh, I've lost everybody. Where did we all go? Let me get you over on the side. All right, I'm just going to put it over the top of us for a minute, and maybe I can put us up here and come back. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so, Paul, we understand it is difficult to get administration to see the value in teacher workshops. That's where we're wanting to encourage you to start looking at different ways. What about talking to equipment manufacturers like those that are here today that offer curriculum, that offer training, that offer online training to help get you the resources that you need? Remember, this is about getting you all the resources you need. We can talk workshops, we can talk conferences. When it comes down to it, the training is really a super valuable part of what we do. Think about how many hours an evening, all of us, and we used to laugh at about the kids going, kids are on their phones hours a night, right? Huh? How many of us are on our phones hours a night?
Clifton, can I say something real quick? Perception's reality. And I think what Paul needs help with,
right?
He needs someone locally to come into his program or through an online meeting that helps his administration understand as technologies change, so does the program we offer. Paul, that's what we're here to do. We're trying to find out What do we need to do to help you get the administrative support you need so you can make the changes that are necessary?
Clifton, can I address that a little bit?
I hope you might.
Howard and I were talking the other day, and Paul, you're exactly right. It's hard to get the buy-in when they're pulled in so many ways, different directions in a trade school where they have different, disciplines that they're trying to accomplish at the same time. However, and Paul will probably agree with me on this, Daikin and Mitsubishi did not change the physics of how air conditioning works. But we understand how to manage it really well, because when you take a typical system like you mentioned, Clifton, that we've been working on for 50 years, there's probably 4 to maybe 6 feet of copper inside that condensing unit, that makes it work. We probably have 70 or 80 feet of copper in one of our systems. So it's not the same. So you can't take that knowledge, and that's where some of the bad installs come from. They take the stuff that they've been doing in the field and they try to apply it to an inverter, and it doesn't work. But the educators, the administrators, the one thing that they do is when they're going out in the market, whether they're looking for funds or looking for students or whatever, they're touting the level of education that their students get. So if they go after them with that buy-in, say, listen, if you buy into this and you get involved in this, you're going to put yourself head and shoulders above the competitors that aren't doing this. So I think those are some of the conversations we need to have. We need to start asking them better questions, for one, and looking at what we need to do and listen to them to get their buy-in on why they need to make these changes. And I think that'll help elevate and facilitate some progress moving forward.
I agree. And I know that as manufacturers, you offer some special opportunities for educators to participate in training classes. Paul, do you want to give a little education on training that you have available at Mitsubishi for educators? And Paul Leonardi, I am so grateful you're joining us. I know you put so much time into learning, and that's why we're trying to make sure that we're getting you the best value education that you can get in the industry. So I appreciate every comment you give for us.
Yeah.
All right, Paul.
We have a lot of e-learning available, and there's no charge for it. We don't charge for our e-learning. And we're actually growing. I actually just recently, after discussions with this group here, I started a catalog just for HVAC educators. It's not live yet, but we're building content just for the educators. So to train that trainer how to train their students on on our products specifically and certain things. We're not going to touch the fundamentals, the basics. Mm-hmm. It's, hey, what can you teach them from a higher level than if you are a contractor in the field and come to class, appropriate level. We also have, we have training centers throughout the country, both that Mitsubishi owns and operates, and also on our distributor level. And there's in-person classes available there. You can go to the MitsubishiPro.com and you can find all that. Look for training for professionals and you'll find it. And Cliff, I don't know if you can put a link on here later, mm-hmm. But I'm happy to provide that to you. But yeah, the training is out there, and we're going to be growing that. It's something we just started, and it's a slow thing. It takes a lot of time to put this together, but I'm looking forward to growing it.
I do too. That's why we're having these conversations, so that the industry is aware that this is an industry concern, and the industry is pulling together to get these resources together. Justin, you want to tell us a little bit about training resources for educators as well?
Yeah, just like Mitsubishi, we have our own in-house kind of trainings. It's through our HVAClearningcampus.com website. There, the contractor or the educator can see online on-demand training. They can also see any of our trainings throughout North America. Just like Paul said it with Mitsubishi, we have our own internal training facilities as well as training facilities with our distributors. So you can go in there on HVAClearningcampus.com and look at any of the trainings throughout North America, and it will tell you how many seats are available, where they are, and what if there is a cost, which most of our classes are free as well.
Yep, absolutely. And I've been to the Train the Trainer class that you guys put on, and it is a really cool thing to participate in. So, there's a lot of resources, and if you're looking for them, let us know. Remember, we do the show for you. That's it. Like, we are all here to support you and issues that you encounter, as educators, as contractors and technicians. All right, let's move on a little bit further. If anyone has any questions along the way, we'd be happy to dive into that with you. This is Howard. You want to?
Can we go back one slide real quick? I don't know that we touched on that enough. Well, you're talking about the requiring a solid foundation, and Howard mentioned about these mini classes they're trying to do. I know we are working with some workforce development people around the country where they understand they can't teach them to be a technician, but they can go in and teach them to be a good preventative maintenance guy, and being able to go in and help do that with changing filters, cleaning coils and stuff like that. So when they're looking to, if they can't find a job in their current industry, they could go in to be a helper, which the contractors need those too.
You bet.
Then they can elevate their education to grow to be a technician from there. But there's no way in the world you can make someone a qualified heat pump technician in 2 to 3 weeks. It's just, especially coming from a different industry, not going to happen. And you're doing everyone a disservice by saying that you can, because he's either going to go out there and hurt himself, hurt somebody in the industry or a consumer somewhere, or he's going to do something that could be detrimental, whether it be to the power grid or what. So that's not it's not a very feasible thing, but we can make them a good helper in just a few weeks. So we teach them how to change filters, clean coils, and that kind of stuff.
Yep, introductory into the industry, and I definitely see that. So the demand and the need for classroom education is going to escalate. We work with 1,400 plus schools around the country, and the thing that we keep hearing is, well, enrollment's growing, and so in that we're looking for the tools, the ways to help make that more convenient for you. All right, Howard, this is kind of back to you. I mean, a lot of this is things that we talk about regularly. Let's talk about ways for aligning coursework between manufacturers and schools and like ESCO.
Sure. Let me interject one thing real quick. I'll answer a previous question than yours, if that's okay.
Okay.
I think everyone watching, we could talk for 4 hours on any one of these slides.
Oh yeah, easy.
We're not answering everything. I hope everyone's coming to the National HVAC Education Conference. Everyone you see on the screen will be there. What we want you to know, this isn't about brand X versus brand Y. We all have a single message. Change is here, and we want to help you with that transition. So we realize a lot of teachers are being asked to teach about things they themselves have never worked on. That's a big problem. So what are some of the obstacles? Let's teach you on it. That's our common goal. As far as aligning what we're doing, here, I'll start off with telling everyone, if you go to escogroup.org, at the very bottom of our website is a link that says competency and task list. So imagine you're grabbing subject matter experts from different parts of the industry in different geographical locations. You do something called a job task analysis. You determine what jobs are in the HVAC industry, and you identify the common competencies and tasks. That's a roadmap that's free. We do that to help people understand what are the basic knowledge and skills that you should have in any program, okay? As far as, here's one of the things I try and, Paul and I were talking before the show. If I'm not a contractor that works with Daikin or with Mitsubishi or another brand, it shouldn't matter. If you reach out to the manufacturers and you're absolutely genuine, not asking for free handouts, how do we build a partnership together? I want to better educate my students, better prepare them. You want to build your brand. How do we do this together?
Yeah, and that gains you access to some incredible training materials. A lot of people look at OEM training content and go, oh, that's just for this piece of equipment or for this piece of equipment. But what we're talking about, what we're seeing is our manufacturers creating content for you that's even more foundational, the fundamentals of what we're doing. Hey, Froggy, thanks for joining us. Yeah, I know it's been a while since you've been on here. And if you have any questions along the way, jump in and let us know. Glad to see you again. So it all comes down to partnering with our manufacturers. And Howard alluded to this a while ago. There's really two ways that we want to help you get the education that's going to be required going forward, right? We want to gather you in a place with common minds And we want to gather you in a place where you're getting manufacturer specific training. We kind of talked about some of the classes before, and Howard has really, talked about what's happening with the conference. Tom, this is probably a good one for you of seeing both sides, equipment manufacturer as well as a member of a conference, of the type of education, the type of knowledge that's attainable at the National HVACR Education Conference.
One of the best things about the conference is the ability to bump into the people that you need to bump into.
Right.
You have the opportunity to run into the right people to have the conversation you need to have. Again, as a former member of a manufacturer training program who was not represented here today, I spent a lot of years, I think 11 or 12 years prior to my coming to work for ESCO, investing in of myself and my company, of the time that we put into it, providing small training programs, bringing equipment, and again, so have the gentlemen in this meeting as well. And it is a time when the goals are aligned. There's opportunities for us to say, hey, mine's better. But the reality is what everybody needs is training to understand all of these products. Fundamentals is what you need to get first, because you can't grasp some of the stuff. You look at some of the pictures of the content, some of the technology of this equipment. Yes, it's high tech, but you get to the point where you understand high tech by picking up a piece of it and a piece of it and piece of it, and you don't get there until you've been willing to put in the time to build those layers to get to be who you need to be as an instructor, or as a student, or as a contractor. And every single one of us has to take the time to do that, because it's new, it's changing. And unless we accept the change and jump to the next challenge, we're going the wrong way down the hill.
I've seen myself a lot of contractors participating in the conference, which was not a common thing 5 years ago. The conference has really provided content and provided these connections, rubbing these elbows with equipment manufacturers, helping build programs. And it's really about education in general. So I know there's technicians, there's contractors that are on the show today going, okay, I hear this is all about schools, but what for me? And we're encouraging you that the education conference and our equipment manufacturers are here for the exact same reason you are, right? We are all here to learn and to become better with the technologies that are in the industry today. So as contractors, as technicians, we encourage you to join us and learn, get some hands-on. And we encourage you to talk to all of our manufacturers that are joining us, and will be continuing to join in this effort to bring this education to the industry. So this is an introductory into educational resources, an opportunity that we've not witnessed before. We've got all of these manufacturers that are joining in this effort, who are usually competitors, that are all joining in going, okay, as an industry, we have to do this. We have to unite. We have to understand this equipment. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful. So I'd like for us all to share a little bit about why we have participated as manufacturers or even as individuals. Yes, Paul.
Clifton, I just want to address the contractors and business owners that are here watching us and listening later. I encourage you to get with your local schools. There's a school somewhere near you that needs advisory council members. Get with them. You can help the industry and you can help yourself. You know better than anybody else what the students need to know coming out of those classes and those programs. So please, I encourage you, get involved with those schools.
That's Paul.
I just wanted to say that.
I love that. And Paul Leonardi, another educator, saying the same thing, right? This is the reason that we do these conferences and we do these classes. And Jason, you're so right. It's all about investing in our own futures, right? I'm learning every single day. I've learned so much from going to the conferences and being a part of this. So let's each share a little bit of experience about the conference and why we go as a manufacturer and potentially as an individual. Paul, let's go down the line.
Yeah, no, this is our the second year that I'm going to the conference, and I have two of my guys are going to be presenting on topics on one of the workshops, and Forgive me, I don't remember what the
Okay.
topics are. But we're there because we recognize, like all of us here, there's a need to get more people into this industry and to develop the workforce. Otherwise, no matter how many heat pumps we manufacture and we sell, if no one's there to install them, service them, then then we're not going to go anywhere. And it's not just the heat; it's the industry as a whole. It's not just us. So we want to help those educators out there. We want to help them to help the industry.
Howard, this is all you.
Once upon a time, the conference was called the National HVACR Educators, Trainers Conference and Symposium. A lot of words.
Mm-hmm.
Shortened it because we wanted people didn't always understand who's this for. No matter your role, my attitude has always been whether you work at a manufacturer, a school, supply house, you're an apprenticeship program, you're all educators, whether you're educating a student, customer, or employee. So what we were trying to do is create a singular place where you cannot just come and learn about new equipment, but you could take it apart, get your hands dirty, meet the people. These aren't salespeople that are coming to the conference. When you look at Paul, Justin, and Jeff, these are the people on the front line of innovation who can tell you about these and help you integrate them into your program. So I'll share just a quick thing. I get people who say, well, one side of the conference is all these classes, nearly 100 sessions. Another side is all the exhibits where I can meet partners. I think the mastery of the conference is what happens in between, because that's where we go for coffee and drinks and people say, hey, Jeff, I really didn't understand what you were talking about. I don't want to raise my hand in class. How do we work together? And I see just tremendous partnerships there. I want to throw one non-conference thing, but it's conference thing. And Jeff said something about instructors need to get continuing education. I agree 100%, but I also want to add one caveat. At least half their continuing education each year should directly relate to what they're teaching. We understand your school may say, go learn about our learning management system. Go learn about this new fire drill or some safety thing. If you were an auto teacher, you would be going to new model classes every year. If you were a medical teacher, as Paul alluded to, we'd be going to medical classes. I challenge every HVAC instructor, technician, contractor, you should be going out. There's too many opportunities with all these manufacturers and what we do. You should be educating yourself. Last thing is, if you've watched 40 hours of Netflix this year, you could find 5 to 10 hours at least to watch good stuff on HVAC too.
That's right. Before we move down the line, I have a comment I would love for us to address, because this is very, very much why we do this, mechanical environments. So in the industry, one of the things that we do not have is uniform accreditation, right? Here at ESCO, the HVAC excellence side is constantly trying to raise the elevation of education in our industry. And I can tell you that not all schools follow the same accreditation standards. I know our schools that we work with love having contractors as a part of their accreditation body. It's an important part of moving the program forward. So if you have went to a school and you've had a poor response, I encourage you to dive a little deeper into some of the other schools. If you're wanting to work with a school and you need to find that connection, let us know. We would absolutely love to be able to connect you with schools that are looking for advisors. Because I know here locally, I volunteer for participating in an advisor committee, and they just crave additional input. So it's kind of like if we think about contractors, right? I was a contractor at once, so I can say this. Not all contractors are created equal, and all schools are not created equal. So there's a lot of elevation to be made, and it's an industry that's going to have to do that because we don't have a standard protocol for an entire industry. Jeff, I see you're right to say something.
Can I just jump in on that one?
Yeah.
Real quick. To the person who just posted that, if you want to impact that school, bring many people to the program advisory meeting.
Yeah.
You show up with 6 or 7 people, it's going to be difficult for them to ignore you. If they ignore you when you walk in with a small army, like Clifton said, find another school that wants your help.
You bet.
Amen.
Additionally, I would say try to bring a manufacturer with you as well.
Oh, that's a great one.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as you're seeing as contractors, right? This is this is a opportunity to start partnering with manufacturers, because our manufacturers are very diligent in this movement of the needle for our industry. We have to do it collectively. We have to combine our efforts to move the industry forward. And one of the biggest ways we can do that, the most important ways, is we can go through training and we can get the certifications to validate it. Paul Leonardi, one of the things that, you're having a problem working with your administration. There's one thing that administration loves to see: continuing education and certifications to validate that. I can guarantee that. So let's talk a little bit about certifications and some that are important, especially as we move into heat pumps. All right, let's start with this. Go ahead.
I started to say, when it comes to that, being able, like I said earlier, this is a different type of piece of equipment than you've been used to working on.
Yep.
So for me as a consumer as well, if someone's coming into my house, I want to make sure they're certified on what they're doing. They're qualified to do the work that I need. And just to be able to say that they've been in the industry for 20 years working on something that's antiquated, it'd be like a guy that's, oh yeah, he grew up and he was a carburetor mechanic on a 72 VW Bug. I'm not going to let him anywhere near my F-250 diesel truck. Not going to happen. So being able to, and it validates it and gives a third party recognition to the consumer and gives them a peace of mind. It's sort of like an ASE certified mechanic in the automobile industry. The car manufacturers have branded that very well, that all their technicians are ASE certified. So that this guy knows what he's doing when you take your car in there. So we need to get to the same level in the HVAC industry. In a lot of areas, they don't even require them to go to school. They just do the on-the-job training, and they think that suffices. And you wind up, as a manufacturer selling such a sophisticated piece of equipment, I don't want those guys really working on my equipment, because that gives a black eye to the consumer for me, because they blame me, not him. Mm-hmm. Then it creates an issue for my service department, which in turn creates an issue for my sales department. And it's just a snowball rolling downhill that once it gets started, you can't stop it. So we need to be able to stop it right up front and get in front of this. And if anybody needs my help with any administrators, just let me know. I mean, I've been doing this for a while with Daikin. Was the first sales guy to become a trainer with Daikin. And I'm pretty passionate about why this education is critical. Back to Paul's thing earlier about the medical industry. I saw a joke years ago where a doctor took his car into the mechanic. When he got his bill, he said, "You charge more than I do." Mechanic said, "Yeah, we have to learn a new model every year. You've been working on the same one since the beginning of time." Same thing with an AC guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it comes into doing the training and the certifications that go along with that.
Absolutely.
Howard, let's talk a little bit about certifications. That's kind of the heart at what we do. And we work with our equipment manufacturers on certifications all the time. How, as a contractor or as an educator or a technician, how do we know which certifications? Because it's another one of those things. I wish we were all leveled out like the ASC certifications are for the automotive that Jeff was alluding to, but we're not really there as an industry. We've kind of let that slide, and we have a variety of certification bodies. What do we look for in certifications?
Well, first of all, Jeff kind of alluded to something. If your brakes don't work, you don't look for a transmission certified person. Okay. And you look for a certification that's relevant. So first thing you're looking for, there's a lot of national certifications. Mm-hmm. We're always looking, were they built on a job task analysis? Are they nationally recognized? Was it built on a job task analysis? Is it specific to, if I'm a consumer and I want a heat pump, I'm looking for a heat pump certification. Your light commercial air conditioning certification is nice, but it's not relevant. In the specific area of heat pumps, Department of Energy created a new tool called Energy Skilled. So there's a lot of energy skilled recognized training programs, and then there's a few certifications. So part of what we've talked about, if you're looking at certification, match the certification to what you're looking to hire someone for. And this is probably your next slide, but this all jumps into how do we help someone understand what should be teaching consumers about heat pumps? This is where I was going, is Consumers have no information on how to select hiring a technician or a technology. But when you buy a car, you have all sorts of information. So what is a heat pump? What does it do? Why is it better for me? Who should I hire? Did they go to school? If so, was it on the job? Did they go through an apprenticeship program? What certifications? We could spend an hour on this one. I'll leave this to the panel, but I could spend an hour on this one. This is one that I'm passionate about. It's not all equipment is, as Jason Obsud always says, is born equal. Then we install it. So it's about hiring the right person to install, service, and maintain your equipment.
That's awesome. I'm going to steal that, Jason.
Yeah.
I know you're on this line.
You know, one of the things that you just brought up, Howard, is actually another testament to how our manufacturers are uniting for education within the industry. They're all after a common goal. And, you know, Froggy, I know that we've got schools, like I said, there's a lot of unregulation in the industry, and we have schools that aren't bringing the level of education that the industry needs. And that's what we're trying to do. I wish we could push every school to a specific standard, and that's what we try, but there's no federal requirement for that. So we're here to, as an industry, move that forward. One of these ways that our manufacturers are helping bring that training to the industry at a universal level is through the programs like Energy Skilled, right? So Energy Skilled is quickly becoming a recognized standard for a level of the content and the level of certification for working on products, particularly like heat pumps. I threw the link into the chat. You're going to start seeing a lot more of that. Our manufacturers have got Energy Skilled heat pump training programs. ESCO's got heat pump training program. We've got the certifications that go along with it, and we've been partnering with manufacturers. So whether we're getting the proper education at the school or in the field, it's going to be important that we are getting the level of education that is needed, because there's a lot of technicians, new and existing, Froggy, that are not up to speed with modern inverter heat pumps.
Well, Clifton, one thing on that about this, what we should be teaching consumers. I think back, because I've been in this industry for a long time, and I remember when the heat pumps first came out, when it got below 36, 37 degrees, they didn't work very well. So a lot of people were turned off by them at that time. But the fact is, and I know the DOE and some of these other heat pump initiatives going on around the country, they're putting together packages to educate the consumer. But my experience has been, though, that decision is made at the dining room table when that contractor's there. So we need to make sure that he is fully versed on exactly what these heat pumps can do for this consumer, why they're a benefit, not only to make sure he knows how to put them in properly, because that's where that decision's made. And I don't care how much they educate the consumer. If that contractor comes in there and he's well trusted in the neighborhood and he says, no, you don't want to do that, they're not going to do that, because they're not going to feel comfortable enough in their knowledge. But his confidence on being able to deliver that message across that dining room table is what's going to matter.
Yeah, and I will echo that. That's absolutely true, because we don't have an opportunity to educate the consumer. It's the contractor that's doing most of that. So we need to educate that contractor. He needs to feel comfortable and confident and know what's truth and what's a myth.
Yep.
No, 100%. And it leads perfectly into, if we are a consumer, or if we're just a contractor looking for a technician to hire, right? Many of our educators have the opportunity to start preparing our students for these industry accepted certifications. A perfect example is the high performance heat pump and the heat pump installation, and there's installation and, what's the other one?
Sales.
No, it's called comfort advising, which is sales.
Oh, yeah.
So we are actually starting to see a lot of this in the schools now, where we're picking up training and certifications in the schools, preparing the students for entering into these high performing pieces of equipment. And we have the technicians and contractors looking at it going, but can we do the same thing? We go, absolutely. You sure can. We're all doing the same training, whether it is through the school, whether it's through your manufacturer, whether it's through ESCO, the certifications and training is available to you. and we want to make sure that you've got that. Yeah, Tony, we're glad you're joining us, man. I'm so glad to have you on here, right? We have so many things that we have to push the industry forward. We're just now getting past the refrigerant transition. I feel like we're getting there, right? We're becoming very successful at getting past the R410A into our new generation of refrigerants. We've had some hangups, but we're moving along, right? But when it comes to the technology, that's not slowing down. And we're going to see this change escalate into this next year, which is why we really need to have these conversations to make sure you're getting the training, the certifications necessary to be successful.
There's proof in that pudding there, Clifton. I tell people all the time, the only constant in your life is change. You don't believe that? Look at the refrigerants.
Yeah.
We change them all the time.
And we'll change
If
again.
I may, real quick, about cold climate and qualification. And one of the most, you've got to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, Jason said it earlier, but I mean it in a different way. I've been heating my homes in the Northeast in New York since 2009 with heat pumps. Okay. And that's with high efficiency heat pumps. They work. Get one. Work out a deal with a manufacturer, with a supplier, because if you don't understand it yourself and you don't bother to get your own experience with it, you won't trust it.
Tom, you're absolutely right, because in the late 80s, early 90s, I did not advise my customers into buying a heat pump.
That's correct.
Right. But when I came to work for Daikin, and many years ago, and we're way below that now, and they said we can provide heat at 4 degrees, I went, wait, what?
Yep.
And now we're providing heat at minus 27. So this is not your grandfather's air conditioner.
No.
Agreed. And that's what I wanted to get across, because it isn't just learning. You need to gain your own experience.
Oh, absolutely. That's why, one of the things too, Tom, when I came to work for Daikin, and I put a mini split on my back porch with vinyl windows in Orlando. And I realized at 68 degrees, at 64 degrees, it was warmer on my porch than it was in my house with a gas furnace. So guess what? I pulled all that out, and that's all Daikin.
Yeah. Well, and it goes to understanding the technology, because a lot of educators may not even be aware of the transitions that we've done just with technology. We're going to be discussing things like electronic expansion valves and how to properly test and understand how they work. We're going to be talking about vapor injection in compressors, things that we typically only see in commercial industrial applications. We're talking about rotary and swing compressors, things that run at very high RPMs with wide range capacities of operation and critical charging on systems. There were times where we could get by with an installation that could be maybe plus or minus 15 or 20% of its refrigerant charge, and it would still probably operate and run decently if it was a single stage unit with a piston maybe. But in today's world, we're talking ounces of actual refrigerant charge tolerances. So there's so much that we have to talk about. There's these resources everywhere. We just need for, as an industry, people to start joining in this effort, right? Education's fun. It helps us understand these challenges and get past them. When you get past them, the only thing ahead of you is opportunity.
That's it.
Right? All right. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour. I know we didn't get into too much technical. We've had a few episodes where we didn't dive as deep technical, just because we've had conversations that we felt were really important for the industry. And so we'll be getting back into our technical side a lot more, but you're going to see conversations like this where we're trying to encourage an entire industry to unite, to elevate all of ourselves into new places for training and education. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If there's any other questions from the audience, just give me an email at cbeck@escogroup.org. Guys, thanks for the time, and we will see you all again next week on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show. Bye, everybody.